What's up, everyone? Today we are painting Megan from Zombicide Green Horde. On her we are trying to do something new with the scenery. I definitely wanted to try to make my own little flowers to put because she's both a badass and still feminine. So she likes flowers, but she also can murder you if you look at her wrong. So let's get down to the table and I'll show you how I did it. Alright, so we're getting started with Megan. We've started with a Zenithal Prime. I did black spray paint and then came in with the airbrush and did white from a 45-degree angle and then again straight down to give her the brightest white on top of her head. I'm using 3 different sizes of brushes here, a size 2, a size 0, and then what I call my workhorse brush, which is that fat little brush that I use to transfer paints across. I wanted Megan to be kind of a very fair-skinned maiden, so I used Vallejo's Fairy Flesh from their Nocturna line. This is not really a base paint, it is a layer paint, so it takes multiple layers, and I mean multiple. I probably had to put on 6 or 7 layers of this paint because I definitely didn't want it to become streaky, so I was very conscious about how it was going on and didn't want to thicken it up at all. I should have started with literally any other skin tone before going to that one, but I made my bed, so now I have to lie in it. Mechanicus Standard Gray from Citadel and Black from Vallejo. And that is going to be for her staff here. I'm not really sure what these are on the staff. I'm guessing that there's some sort of like obsidian stone that she's using so that she can jab and cut and everything all at once and bludgeon. So I try to make them look like a nice slate color, so it's both gray and black in there. You can see the skin is still not where I wanted it to be. Each time she's going to get a little bit heavier in the skin tone. She just looks kind of horrifying right now, but that's alright. This is pure Mechanicus Standard Gray. Doing Mechanicus Standard Gray on the sword. When I play the game, I usually start her with the basic sword. Rolf gets the Norse sword, considering he's, barbarian. But since she has the basic sword, I just use flat Mechanicus Standard Gray for that. I'm also using the Vallejo's flat black here. The one that I already showed to do her hair. So she's just going to have solid black hair. We will highlight it up because we don't want it to ever be just pure black. Because pure black looks a little weird. So then I moved over to the Nocturna line's Natural Flesh. And the Natural Flesh I'm using as a low light. Now, I probably should have started with Natural Flesh as the base and then highlighted from that. But, again, I did it this way, so now I have to stick with it. Don't worry, it does turn out alright at the end. That's part of it. You just learn to fight through any of the little weird things that you do. And you learn valuable lessons for the next miniature that you start on. But this one, I am trying to low light instead of highlight, and that was something that I intentionally did at the time. It's silly looking back, and especially watching this, knowing how many layers it took to do this and how silly it was to do it that way when I could have just done it the simpler way. But now after layer and layer and layer and layer and layer, you can see she now has a pretty consistent pale skin tone. In the recesses, she now has a shadow that's very natural looking. Model color purple, model color flat red. I'm doing about a 90-10 mix. It's 90% flat red, 10% purple. I wanted kind of a velvety red. I didn't want it to be just this bright, shiny red here. So the nice velvety red is going to be for her entire dress. Her dress extends both top and bottom, front and back, so you're going to want to get all of that. Next up, we're using P3's Umbral Umber. It's a real dark chocolate brown. This is one of my favorite colors to use for types of leather and things like that, but here I'm actually using it mixed into the same red purple mixture. I just added a little bit of that brown and then skirted it across the bottom of her dress. You can see how high I went up. I didn't really go up any higher than that, and it is pretty thin down, so it's like a little glaze, and that's just making her dress look dirty. You know, she's been fighting orcs and zombies for years now. She is not going to be wearing a dress that has been freshly laundered, so of course there's going to be some mud and grit and everything that's stuck on there. So I just went back and added a little bit of that to the bottom there. Now this is a separate mix. We're using the Umbral Umber, and I'm using some raw sienna, which is a tan. You can see here on the right hand side was the Umbral Umber, left hand side was the raw sienna, and then mixed them together in the middle to get a medium tone. Now I didn't just want to use flat brown because flat brown has its own sort of tonal distinction. I was trying to lighten the Umbral Umber with a kind of a khaki-ish color to give this leather like that dark oiled leather look. If I would have went with flat brown, it would have looked like fresh leather. So I did the 2 scabbards. I am showing you that I also did her shoes with this color, and I also did that pouch on her right hand hip there. Basically all of the pieces that I figured would be leather, I did it with this starting color, or this base color here. Okay, we have the model color purple again and model color white here, both from Vallejo. And I already started it before I hit record, so but there it is right there. It's on her arm. This is what her shirt is going to be. So I'll paint it on this one so you can, see it clearly what color consistency I was going for. I didn't really put too much white in there. I just wanted to lighten it up, make it be a good balance with the red. And if you did the purple too dark, yeah, the camera was just really fighting me on this one, so sorry. I was trying to put it in there showing you I did both arms. I probably could have cut that out, but you know what, things happen. And then what I did for the top portion of the sleeve is I lightened it even more. So I added a little bit more white and then painted the top portion of the sleeve, which is what you're seeing here. Now my brush was really chalky right here, but fighting through it anyway. And I'm wet blending the darker purple and the lighter purple. Both are mixed with white, but the top one's about a 50-50 and the bottom one's a 75-25. And then I'm wet blending them together to give them a better transition between the two. I'm going to do the exact same thing on this side, which is why I probably should have cut out the other part, but you know what? We're already here. We've already gone past it. We're moving on, so don't worry about it. And we're doing the exact same thing. We're putting the lighter color where the sun would be shining, and then where the recessed shadow is, which is, the backside of her arm, that we are going to blend the two together here. So all I've done is gone in and grabbed a bunch of water on my brush, then wiped that off so that it was just sort of on the tip, and then came back and did a quick mixture of the two here. Your paints have to be thinned pretty well, and you need to move quickly for that to work. Otherwise, it's just going to smear the top layer. This is Vallejo's Buff, one of my favorite colors to use when we're talking about rope or fabric that is undyed. So far in the Zombicide world. So I'm going to use this on all of the places that we see string or rope or fabric, which I did around her ankle there, around her wrist, We're doing it around the armpit area here on her dress. There is some like frill design there. I don't know what else to call it. And then also all of the stuff that I'm pointing out there on her chest from the leather, and there's also going to be some on the bow staff, and there's some on, you can see on her hip, the bag has some stitching there, so I'll also do that stitching. Now you need it to be thinned down, so right here it was not thin enough, so I went back to thin it before I even attempted that. So you can see now there's really the buff colors everywhere on her because there's stitching everywhere, so you really need it to be thinned down. Now what I'm doing here, unfortunately I couldn't do it another way because I had already recorded it and it was out of focus, but that's alright, is I put white paint, just pure white paint on the bottles and on this scroll thing right here. So when I get away from the camera, I'm going to clean them up. So that's why I'm just sort of slapping it on right there, just to show you where I'm putting it, but I'm going to clean it up, even it out. We want there to be a white base on that. So now I have Citadel Shade Seraphim Sepia. Seraphim Sepia is a very light orangish brown tone. If you're not familiar with photography, then you probably wouldn't know what sepia tone is, but this gives it that orangish brown look that you would have as one of the filters in, you know, Instagram, and it used to come on the old Canon old Canon cameras. So I put that on all of her skin. Then we're gonna make sure that you get any of the puddles off. So right now, of course, she looks like she's kind of been burnt, because that's what happens when you put the shade on by itself and you haven't actually highlighted anything yet. Now the Caresburg Crimson, which is another Citadel shade, that's what I'm going to do in all the red. So with that purplish red bottom layer, putting in this darker red on top of it, it's going to really make that red look warm and glowy. The Agrax Earth shade, also from Citadel, and now I'm going to do that on all of the brown leather parts. So we're doing it on the shoes, we're going to do it on her bag, on her belt there, doing it on the staff. You're going to want to hit the things that we painted on her wrist and her leg, getting those with the shade as well, and again, each time making sure that it doesn't pool anywhere. Now this one is my kind of attempt at making there be some sort of gradient on the sword. It didn't come out perfect, but this is one way that you can do it, is you start on one end. So what I was doing is I started at the top and then ran along the bottom layer and lifted off my brush on the bottom of the sword and lifted off my brush at the bottom, which then pools a little bit of the Nuln Oil at the bottom. And then on the opposite side, which is the top, I ran it up and it pools at the top. If you come back and let that dry and then come back and do it again, let that dry, come back and do it again, do it about 3 or 4 times, it makes it have a illusion of there being shinier parts and duller parts of the sword. I didn't do it too well. This was my first attempt at it. It takes practice, but that's the technique of kind of how you do it. How you do it right is a whole nother discussion. So here I've taken that same color that we had on the top, added a little bit more white, so we're now at like a 70-30, and I'm going back and we're going to begin highlighting. So I'm highlighting the top of the sleeves, and I'll highlight the top of the sleeves here, picking out all of the wrinkles in the shirt as her arms are flexing as she's, you know, in her power stance here. No particular reason of why I chose these colors in this order, or like these pieces of the model in this order. I think that there is some logic to why you would base coat things in a certain order, but once it's done, you have to be careful no matter which section you do, because all of it is finished. So it doesn't really matter which one you highlight first, second, third, I think, if you're going to do your model this way. In other words, base coat, then shade, then highlight, then detail. One of the models that I recently did, I did each section. So I would do the hair and do the hair from beginning to end, and then the skin and do that from beginning to end. And that's a totally different way of doing it. But I was trying to see, you know, which version of painting do I like better. And I think it depends on the model, and it depends on what mood you're in and how excited you are to paint the model, because the doing each section one off is a much longer process that takes way longer than this did, for a model the exact same size, I should add. We're back to the original color, and we're coming through and highlighting with the let me see, I'm gonna grab the paint here because I don't even remember what color that was. It wasn't the natural flesh, it was the fairy flesh, the Nocturnal Line Fairy Flesh. So we're going, and I'm putting that on her face in the H zone, as I have referred to it before. Put it across her eyebrows, on her nose, across her cheeks, and then there's a small dot on her chin. I also put it on the top of her arms and across her hands, onto her thighs, and then top of her back arm there. So lightening everything up there. Now this is the pure raw sienna, and I'm just using this to edge highlight the boots. So just give it a little bit of tonal gradient to the brown, so that we have this dark brown color, and then there is a light brown that is going around it as well. And I'm going to do that to all of the leather. This isn't probably the best color to use, or at least maybe I should have put a couple more layers on. I was happy after a single layer of it, but I don't think if you want it to stand out more, then you're gonna have to put more layers on there. A single layer just doesn't really make it pop out. I'm thinking at least a second layer would have been good. And so I'm just showing you where I'm putting it. Of course I put it everywhere. So there it is. You can see there's definitely some definition. You can see it really clearly there on the boots, and on the leather on her chest. But it's not, I don't want to say perfect, because of course it's not perfect. But so here's highlight skin from the Nocturnal line of Fantasy Pro as well. And this one is going to go just on her cheeks, on her nose, across her forehead, thin line, and then on her chin as well. It looks super white. It doesn't look that white when it dries. This stuff is very thin. Very thin. Now, I would caution you about putting too much on larger areas, like her thighs or on her arms. That's probably not the best idea. So here I'm using the pure white to come back on top of that buff that has been doled down by the Agrax. So I'm turning them into a white color, but now you can see that there's some variation in the color. It's not just white. There's white and tan and some dark brown around the edges. So I didn't want to do that on camera because it's such, fine detail work, but I am pointing out all of the areas that I'm going to hit. So basically everything that was done in buff, we're now going to do in white. And that includes the parts around her dress as well. So what I've done now is added a little bit of the dark gray to the black, just to lighten up the black a little bit. And then I'm coming and picking out some different areas on her hair. And I do this a couple times. I'm just showing you once. Like I pick the top areas, flat blue, flat green, flat red. So simple colors from Model Color, and we're using those for the bottle. But back to the hair, I go through a couple of times and do that with the hair to try to get it to be, have some depth to it. I also took the red and painted that little wrap in her hair that now you can see right above where I'm painting. Well, you can't see now because I turned the model, but there it is when she's facing forward. So I just took the red and did that. Those bottles, one red, one blue, one green. So now we have the metallics. There's gold, there's silver, and there's copper. And here I think you can use your best discretion. I use the silver for all of the like buckles and the parts of her belt and leather work that are not I was gonna say not special, but all of it's special, all of it's important. Just mostly the parts that don't need to really glitz and glam. So then I took gold here and put it on the hilt of the sword just to make the sword stand out a little bit, give it something unique. I put it on both the, there's kind of like a design in the middle of the sword there. So I put it there, and then I put it also on the ball of the handle. And then for the bronze, we're going to use the bronze in a few more places. Number one, it's going to go on the scroll on both the front and the back. There's a zoom in of my finger, just in case you were wondering if I'm human. I am. I have fingers. There is the handle for the dagger is going to be bronze. And then we're also going to do that bronze on the back side where she has another scroll. I would say that the gold and the bronze need 2 layers. The silver really doesn't. I think that it being really dulled down is a good thing for this model. You're not going to want it to be super shiny. Now here I tried to give a little bit of like a glow to this. I don't know if it came out exactly how I wanted it to. I don't know if it's the best way to have done it. But I used white and grayish blue. So azure is like a gray blue color. And I painted that across the top of it. If I had to do it again, I probably would have done even more white in that gray blue, and might have flipped it and actually did the gray blue on the bottom. But I did come and I did like this. I edge highlighted all of the bottles to make them look like they were kind of glistening, and I thought that that actually came out pretty well. That makes them look like little glass bottles sitting in her bag. And then you could put brown on the tips if you want to put little stoppers in there. So here's Reddish Flesh from Nocturna Pro. It's like a reddish brown, and I'm doing her lips in that. It makes it subtle. I didn't want to paint her lips red and make it look like she had on lipstick. She doesn't have time for that. You know, she's fighting zombies. So just gave her natural red lips. And just a natural skin tone there. And since her mouth is open in a scream, it makes it really, really easy just to kind of put the tip of the brush in there, move around a little bit, and then her lips will be pretty much coated with as much paint as you would want them to be. Then I'm using white to paint under the eyes. And I skipped forward here because I made her look insane. And rather than showing you how to make her look insane, I'd rather just show you, hey, look, this is what I did. Probably don't do that. I don't know if it's that her eyes are so big or that her eyebrows are up or if it's all of them together. I'm showing you Cherry Blossom from Huge Miniatures. Huge Miniatures, awesome company. Go check them out. I'll put a link in the description below. They make awesome flock. And for very good prices. And if you're in North America, the shipping is incredibly reasonable. I'm also using the Army Painter line of what are these called? Little tufts of grass. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some of the Gorilla Glue. It's not wanting to come out of the tube, but I'm going to put this on just a couple places on the tip. So you'll see there's a little dab there, a little dab here, just a couple little dabs in here, not much at all. You don't want to put too much, and I would caution against using PVA glue because I think that it is less sticky, so you're going to need to use more, which will then backfire on you. But I've taken this tuft here, and then I'm just going to dip it in, and it's going to grab way too much at first. You don't have to worry. None of that is going to stick. Just the parts that have touched the glue. So then after blowing on it to get some of that off, tapping some of it off, we now have like homemade flowers. Loose Miniatures has just ran a Kickstarter for flowers, and for grasses and little tufts and things like that. I did back that Kickstarter. So those will be available in their store soon, and then you wouldn't even have to make them. But if you have these two pieces, I like being able to make them myself, because that took all of 20 seconds to make, and I can use the grass tufts without. I can use the loose foliage by just putting it on the ground and making it look like cherry blossom leaves. So I'm not stuck with flowers. If you buy flowers, you have to use flowers. Here's what I did there is I put a basing sand paste on the bottom. It's an acrylic basing sand paste. And then I'm coming back with Bealtan green, and that is a green shade from Citadel, and going all over the entire base. The point of that is that if there's any part where the grass doesn't stick so well, it's okay, because you'll see green below it. So you want to make sure that this gets everywhere except for on the clothes, which you have to be really careful not to get on the clothes. I'm using my workhorse brush, as I call it there. My little fat brush. I think it's a size 4. So I'm using a turned up cap, putting a little bit of water and a little bit of PVA glue. It's watered down. You need to allow the paste to dry for at least 2 hours. I would say at least 2 hours. You might want to go 5 or 6 hours to let that stuff dry really, really well, because when you start painting on the glue, it will grab it up. I'm using an incredibly cheap brush here. I think I got a pack of like 90 for $2 or something like that. This is just what I use for putting on glue, or painting glue, I should say, so I don't ruin my good brushes. So you're making sure that you get that everywhere that you got the green, basically. Now I'm taking some of this brown turf and putting that on the base. Just dropping that on. You don't need as much as you are going to need of the grass for the way that I'm doing it. I want it to look like just, some little pebbles and stone. And then using the Battlegrounds moss green from Army Painter. And then this one you just sort of cake on, and it's okay that it gets everywhere. It's not going to stick. It's only going to stick where the glue was put, so it won't stick on the actual character or on her shoes. And then just tap it off. And you'll have to do this a couple of times and then rub along the base to get it off. And then if there is any that has stuck to her dress or anything like that, you can just use a clean paintbrush and come and get that off. So here I am putting, wait, what am I doing? Hold on. I'm in suspense as well, because that's not the one with the flowers. Did I put 2 on here? Oh, I did. Okay, never mind. So I put 1 in the back. That's what I did. I don't have the model in front of me. She's in the box. So I put 1 clean one in the back. So there's just some grass in the back, next to a rock that I put down. If you're going to put a rock down, put it down in the wet paste. Then the wet paste will hold on to it for you. And then I'm putting the flowered one, same exact way, just a little bit of super glue on the bottom. And you'll see how much of that huge miniature stuff fell off. So now it just looks like little flowers there. And then so you can stand them up and make them look like little flowers. And so she's got a flower patch in front of her, and she's also ready to murder you. So she's, I think, a super, super, super awesome model. And she also looks insane with the way her eyes look. It's funny. Alright, so we have Typhus Corrosion and Blood for the Blood Gods. These are both technical paints. We're not mixing them together, but what I'm doing is right at the base here, I'm adding some Typhus Corrosion to make this sword look really like old and dingy. It's got mud on it. It's been in a lot of fights. And that's basically what we're doing with her. And then Blood for the Blood Gods, that's going to be up on the top of the sword here. So that is showing you that she does know how to use this sword. She's pulled it from an orc's belly. So don't pay attention to the flowers in front of her, because she will just murder you anyway. So things about this model, I don't know, she was a lot of fun to paint. The only thing that it is a constant joke when we're playing this game is how crazy her eyes look, but really that is not a very big problem at all. Just painting her eyes right would probably take care of that. So you can see her here all the way around. I like the mixture of the metals. She's there with her buddy Rolf. You can see he has the silver sword. She has the dingier, older sword. So she can definitely take care of herself. You can also see here the scroll. I didn't love the scroll too much. I tried to add a little bit of black lines on that to give it some more distinction, and I think overall that just didn't work out well. So if I had to do it again, I would do it a little bit different way. So hopefully you do it a different way as well. But let me know what you think about this model and my paint job. Let me know what you think about the rest of the Zombicide Horde box set that just came out and everyone's been getting. Let me know what model you would like to see next in the comments below. But until then, thank you guys so much for coming out to hang out with me, and I will see you in just a couple days with another video.